Today on the podcast, I welcome back to the show author Anne Kane. Anne, welcome to the show.
Hi, glad to be here.
I was just looking up the date. You last appeared on the show, do you know when?
Probably about a year ago.
2 years ago, over 2 years ago.
Oh, wow.
October 16th, 2023 was the last time you were on the show.
Oh, wow.
In those 2 years, you've probably published, I don't even know, how many books do you think you've published in the last 2 years?
The last 2 years, probably six.
6 books in 2 years. Incredible. So tell us about that. I mean, what is this massive spree of writing and publishing you've been on for the last 2 years?
Well, honestly, I think the first year was, I wouldn't say playing around, but learning how to actually plot the novel and go through how to, I was basically relearning how to write because I was writing in a totally different genre and I wanted to be able to plot because it was a lot longer and you just have to make sure you have all the plot points in the right place. And so I think the first year was that, and then I just kind of got on a roll and went from there.
So tell us about what genre you were in before and what's the new genre that you were taking on.
Okay, before I was mostly in sci-fi, I was completely actually in sci-fi fantasy and pretty close to, they no longer call it erotica, but it was very heavily steamy, but it just kind of fell between sci-fi doesn't have a lot of readers, it's specific and it wasn't kinky enough to be considered erotica, so it didn't fall in that either. And
Spicy sci-fi probably is what people call it these days, maybe? I don't know.
yeah, I think it was spicy, but and it was totally different. And I kind of, I don't know if you call it, I just got tired of writing that or burnt out or something. And somebody suggested I try contemporary and whatnot. And yeah, went from there. I thought I missed writing. I hadn't written in about 2 years. So I actually miss doing that. And yes, but I thought, oh, I'll try contemporary. I kind of thought of it as a hobby that, didn't cost me too much. So I went from there.
But I mean, it's become a career for you, a side hustle or whatever you want to call it. But I mean, you've got contracts, you've got a publisher, you've got books out there. So tell us, was there a moment where it kind of felt like it became more professional?
I think actually when I put the first contemporary book out, and I was shocked that I think I had 85 pre-orders before it hit the shelves. And like before that, you were lucky if I had 2 pre-orders. So, and then it just kept going from there. And that one is still selling. I think I get an update from the publisher every week. So far this month, I've sold 283 copies of a book that's been out for a year. So,
And what book is that? What's the title?
it's Ace. It's a motorcycle romance. So it's called Ace, Riptide MC. And yeah, there's 5 books out in that series. The 6th one I'm currently working on. And yeah, that's the ones that started it. And now it kind of feels like that's becoming a career that I could kind of, you know, fall back on that and kind of do less of the other career, the daytime job. So
Do you have a sense of why that book has done so well?
I think I hit the right readers at the right time. The publisher publishes a few other like series in that same genre. So, they have, of course, a list they mail out when things publish. So there's that. And I had a lot of help from the other authors who are saying, well, if you do this, then it will sell better. If you do that, it'll sell better, and just how to do it and what was selling.
And
So it
those,
was,
and by the other authors, you mean other authors signed by your publisher?
yes.
Okay, because I'm always looking at, the benefits and drawbacks of both independent publishing or self-publishing and going with a publisher. And so it sounds like that access to a community of other authors is another benefit to put on the side of the publisher.
I think because it's a small like it's a small publisher. So, like, I actually talk to the owner. She phones me fairly once in a while, and I have a lot of say in how the covers look, the marketing, when I'm going to launch, how often. I have a lot of say in any of it without actually having to do a lot of the work. Or, I don't have to pay for the cover. They supply the editor. But yeah, I think I like the small pub. If you go with a larger pub, basically you're handing over your work and you're not getting a lot of say in anything. So it's
When you
nice.
say that the other writers with the publisher gave you some tips and advice, was there anything specific that you recall that you could share with folks in terms of little changes that you made or advice that you followed that helped the book sell?
The first thing was that it had to be in first person point of view. That's what
Mm.
sells in this genre. So that's big. And then just little tips like make sure that if there's an animal in there, you never kill the animal. And I think that goes across all genres, like don't kill the animals. So things like that. But other things like they'd read a chapter and go, the main character threatened to shoot the guy. Why didn't he just shoot him and get it done with? So different things like that and they were really helpful marketing wise. They tell you, this social media platform works for that genre. Don't worry about TikTok. You're not aiming this at 18-year-olds or things like that. I think I'm actually going to Tennessee in next July to a signing. And yeah, but I can't sell books because I'm not American. So, but they're going, well, it's okay. We'll just send somebody else and they can sell the books on the side. And you show up anyways. That's good.
So if you cross the border and then you cannot sell books at a show,
You cannot sell books at a show. I would
working in
have
America,
to
or
partner with somebody in the States and set up a corporation
oh my
and
goodness,
like,
wow.
yeah,
Okay. Okay.
yeah. So no, that's it's not worth the
Well, but
effort.
that's great. So you get to just be a celebrity and meet fans and do the
Basically,
signing
hand
and
hand out, like the publisher will supply bookmarks and different things like promo items, and you just stand there and smile and hand them out. And
one thing that I remember you mentioning is that the motorcycle romance books are supposed to have a specific like logo on the cover. That's like part of the genre. Am I
yes,
remembering that correctly?
yes,
Can you
yes.
tell us a
So I
little about
have a
that?
logo. Ace has their own logo. Riptide. The Riptide MC has their own logo, and they just came up with a logo for the Spirit Bear, which is a different series tied into it. So, yeah, they came up with a logo for that, which was kind of hilarious because they went with they went with the badger on the cover because it had to be some sort of animal. And then I was at in Kamloops, which has a wildlife park, and there's a big sign up there, adopt a badger because I guess they're trying to get money. So I adopted a badger. So now they have their very own badger.
Amazing. Okay, there's got to be a way to turn that into a marketing campaign of some kind. So I have this theory. So you tell me if you think this supports is correct or not. But obviously, the book has to be good, number one, to sell.
Yes,
But then I find that I've worked with clients who have written great books and they don't sell as well. But some of my clients, yourself included, who have done the best in sales have like a very clear two-word pitch that like sells the entire book. So I have my client who did the Catholic Alien book, right? Catholic aliens. Boom, there's the pitch. And you're doing motorcycle romance. It's like two words, people get exactly what the genre is, they know what they're going to get. Do you think being able to kind of boil down a well-written story into like a two-word concept that summarizes the whole thing helps on the marketing side of stuff?
definitely. Definitely. I actually use, what is it called? Publisher Rocket, which gives you keywords and it tells you the keywords people are searching. So you kind of try and work them into your blurb and your tagline because you got a tagline there. But yeah, but you've got to have those short phrases, and that's what people are looking for, and make sure that it's easy for them to find the book.
Was
So, and
motorcycle romance a genre you were already familiar with when you started writing it, or is it something you had to study and kind of get familiar with as you got into the
I
industry?
actually had to study it because I assumed it was something like mafia with lots of blood and guts and everything, which is not my thing at all. But yeah, I found out no, it's kind of like, okay, it's obviously fantasy, the guys are outside the law technically, but they're the good guys, and they always save the girl and the kitten and the whatever else. So yeah, I really had to look at it before I even said that I would do it. I went and got half a dozen books and read them and went, oh, okay, that kind of sounds like fun. So
So you've now done 5 books in the genre, plotting the sixth, plus you're about to release a spin-off. What about the genre do you enjoy writing?
I guess I enjoyed the fact that it's a total fantasy. The guys are all great and they're all perfect and they'll do anything for them. And there's always a happily ever after ending. And yeah, I kind of like the fantasy that life could actually go that way, which we all know it doesn't really, but
I have not read a lot of books in that genre other than yours, but something that immediately comes across to me from having read your work is this idea, and it is kind of carried over from the mafia story, but like this idea of honor and nobility, right? That even if these
yes,
people are kind of outside of the law, they have even a kind of a higher moral code than the rest of society. Does that sound about right?
totally. It's like, okay, they're all ex-Marines. So it's basically, I wouldn't call it honor among thieves. It's like kind of a brotherhood and we stick
Mm.
together and yeah, definitely integrity, morality. And like somebody I knew once said, there's justice and then there's the law. Well, they go for the justice as opposed to necessarily, you know, the bad guys don't get off on a technicality with them. So,
Something that I found interesting about them as well is when I think of romance, I don't necessarily think of action sequences, but I know your motorcycle romances are like filled with big action sequences with chase and shootouts and bombs and all sorts of things. Has it been exciting working? Well, I mean, actually, now that I think of it, your sci-fi had lots of action as well, right? So is that something you've always felt comfortable writing or enjoyed writing, the action
I've
sci-fi?
always enjoyed writing that. I figure something has to happen, and I don't enjoy. I've read books where nothing really happens. You're reading the life story of somebody, and it's all emotional, but there's no actual action. That doesn't really do much for me. So, yeah, we need to have a few chase scenes and somebody getting shot at. And
Yeah, it's like it's action adventure storytelling, but obviously for a romance audience, right? It's
yeah,
just like kind of the best
yep.
of all worlds. I think you get the people who love that external plot driven storytelling, but then you also at the core of all of it is the heart and the romance and the emotion and the love. It's a pretty fun genre to read.
It's fun to write. So, and that was, like I said, originally I didn't figure I was going to make a living at this. So it was just fun. Like I said, it was kind of a hobby that didn't cost me anything. So
And now it's generating some income.
now it's generating income. Yeah.
So if you looked back, say 2.5 years ago when we did the last interview, how has your writing and how has your writing process changed over the last 2 years?
I think it's become more focused. Like I actually make a point of having time to write. So that's the big change. And the process, obviously, I plot now, which I never did before. So, and that makes writing a lot faster because before I used to, you'd get halfway through it and you're going, I wonder what happens next. So now I know what happens next. I just have to get there.
And story plan was really where that process began for you, right?
Yes, definitely. Well, that's why I joined Story Plan because I needed to learn how to plot. So, and that's why I joined that. And that's kind of where all this started, actually.
Well, I mean, I always make the argument at the beginning of story plan, at least in the VIP coaching side of things, it's ridiculous to say plotting is wrong or pantsing is wrong. Obviously, both work. We see this all the time, right?
Yeah.
That said, I am a believer that plotting ahead is ultimately a quicker process. I do believe that knowing where you're going gets you to a more solid first draft quicker than pantsing and then reverse engineering to a place where things work. And so it's rewarding for me to hear that you seem to have, taken the same thing from away from the process.
Well, it does. And the thing about plotting too is you know where you're going, so you can scatter little hints along the way as opposed to going back and trying to put them in or fit them in or yeah, what works for me. I wouldn't say I follow the outline perfectly. Sometimes I end up going off on a tangent, but at least you have the outline. So, and you know
Absolutely.
where you're going to end up, which is a big help.
And novels are kind of great in that we have room to go a little bit on tangents.
Yeah, and well, I like reading for the same reason is that you get the emotion, you know what people are thinking and feeling, whereas you don't always get that from watching like, 20-minute episode of something or other, and it's like, yeah, you don't really see all that. So I think that's a lot of what I put in my books too, is a lot of the emotion behind what's going on. So it helps.
The book that you did for Story Plan is actually the book that's now being released, correct? Spirit Bear Conspiracy?
Yes, yes. It was released January 2nd.
Oh my goodness.
So
Okay,
yeah,
so we are like mere days away from the
we are
release.
days away from release. Yes.
Oh, that is so exciting. So obviously that was a book then that we worked on a couple of years ago. How come it's just coming out now?
I had originally subbed it to a big publisher,
Yeah.
and they basically turned it down and said, didn't really fit what they wanted at the time or whatever. It didn't fit their line. They have very narrow, it has to be this, 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 and this, and
Wow.
it didn't fit that. And I wasn't willing to make enough changes to make it fit their line. So it just kind of sat there until I mentioned it to the publisher in an aside. Like, we're talking about release schedules. And I said, yeah, I got one book that's, been sitting on my hard drive forever and haven't done anything with that. And she said, oh, we can do something with that. So, but it took a lot of revising only because it was in third person and I had to put it back into first person to match
Hmm.
the rest of the series. So that was interesting.
Okay, so for our non-British Columbia viewers, and especially our non-Canadian viewers, tell us about what a spirit bear is and the role it plays in the new book.
Okay, I did not realize people thought a spirit bear was some kind of fiction or fantasy or shifter person shifting into a bear. A spirit bear is actually it's a subset of the black bear. It's got one genetic difference, which makes it white or, creamy off-white, I guess, instead of black. And they're very rare. They're only found in the Great Bear Rainforest on the BC coast, which is basically up by Haida Gwaii, like it's northern BC. And you don't see a lot of them because, like, that's the Great Bear Rainforest is protected area. So, they're there and that's it. I think the last I heard there was about 400, like, was the entire population. That's all there is left. So I guess they used to be more, but, as forestry and everything else cut things down, they're now just in that one area. And yeah, they're very rare. The native population, the indigenous people of the area, they have a word for it, which, and they basically, say that they're protected. They have a lot of mythology around them in that. So that's very important. And the thing it plays in the book was that somebody had seen one kind of away from where they normally are found, a little bit further south, and they weren't telling anybody because they didn't want anybody to take advantage of it or, you see something and 2 million tourists show up and suddenly, something bad happens. So they weren't telling anybody. And then there was poachers that kind of are going, we heard this rumor. Boy, if we killed that one and parted, took parts of it out, we could sell them for a fortune. So it's kind of about trying to protect the bear and protect the person who saw it, and it kind of goes from there. Oh, and the hero of the story, of course, is part of a group that is basically trying to save endangered and, animals that are being exploited. So they, go after people that are exploiting animals, and they were following this group because this group was also basically killing black bears, and that there's, a fair amount of that goes on too, apparently. So
I don't believe all of your books are set in Canada, right? This is unique that this one is kind of set in your neck
this
of
is
the woods.
this is very unique. It was kind of funny because when I started writing the motorcycle romance, I said, well, I can put it in the Okanagan or somewhere. And the publisher who lives in West Virginia said, it snows there. You can't ride bikes, year round. There couldn't possibly be a group. Well, since then, I have discovered that the furthest most Harley Davidson outlet is in Anchorage, Alaska.
Okay.
And and apparently there's at least four motorcycle groups that they know of because I happened to meet somebody who worked at the Anchorage store and they said there's at least four motorcycle groups up there. So apparently I could have put it up here, but I did not. Yep.
Well, if people want to pick up the book, where should we send them?
Okay, it will be available at Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Kobo, a bunch of other ones that like Google Play, Apple iStore, pretty much anywhere. You could probably go to my website, which would have a link that comes up with all of the places you can buy it.
What's your website?
www.annekane.com.
I am super excited about this release. A lot of people come to work with me because they're already partially through a manuscript and they can't figure out how to finish it, or they have a manuscript, but they know it's not good enough and they need some help revising it. And so it's not that often that I get to go through the entire process with someone in terms of like being there when it was an idea, when, being there when you were like, so I think I'm going to write this book, the Spirit Bear conspiracy book. And now seeing it go from like idea to outline to draft to now published novel is so, so exciting for me. And so I'm really excited about this release of yours. Congratulations, Anne.
Thank you. Thank you.
I also love the success that you've had over these last 2 years. It just feels like your writing has taken off like a rocket ship. I love the success you're having with sales, and I just love the productivity in terms of getting material out there and how much fun you seem to be having doing it. I just love seeing that for you.
It is definitely fun. Like I said, I always thought of it as a hobby. Now I'm like, oh, it could be a very lucrative hobby. But yes, it's still fun, and I would like to keep it that way. So I write what I want, what I would be happy reading. So
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for taking time to rejoin me on the show. I'm sure you'll probably arrive in a limo to our next interview 2 more years from now. You'll be living in a penthouse in downtown Vancouver, looking out over the city and throwing $100 bills like you're the Wolf of Wall Street. But for now, I'm so happy to be a friend of yours and to get to experience this amazing journey you've been on with this book and with all your other writing in the last couple of years.
well, it's been good to be part of your group and part of everything you've done and the people there. It's been great. So thank you.